Hello boys and girls. Let's go ahead and start the day off by going over our success criteria. We are starting a new standard today, okay? But what we're doing is we're just taking what we learned last week about fractions and using it to make decimals this week. So our learning target says use decimal notation for fractions with denominators of 10 or 100. So decimal notation is just a fancy word for saying write it as a decimal. Success criteria number 1. I can use decimal notation to represent fractions with denominators of 10 or 100. Sound a little bit familiar of last week, yeah? Denominators of 10 or 100. Number 2, I can represent fractions with denominators of 10 or 100 using decimal notation. So you're just flipping it backwards right there, taking it from a decimal to a fraction. And the third one, I can convert decimals to fractions with denominators of 10 or 100. Or you can take those decimals that we're going to learn about it and turn them into a fraction with these two denominators. Okay, so what I want to start with today is talking about what a decimal actually is. So you have a normal hundreds, tens, and ones chart. So what I need you to do right now is go ahead and get this chart put on your paper. If you don't have paper, go ahead and pause the video and go get a piece and a pencil. If you do, pause the video, go ahead and make this chart. So what I want you to look at with this chart is we know what these place values are. So if I write the number 372, where does my 2 go? In the ones place. Where does my 7 go? In the tens place. Where does my 3 go? In the hundreds place. So when we look at this, it tells us that I have 2 ones. How many tens do I have? That's right. So that makes 70. And how many hundreds do I have? Well, if I have 3 hundreds, that makes 300. So you have 300 plus 70 plus 2 equals 372. We are all very familiar with the place value chart. But I want to show it to you today with decimals. So it kind of looks the same. We've got our hundreds, tens, and ones, just like we do up here. Right now I need you to pause this video and draw this chart for me. So we have hundreds, tens, ones. Here's your decimal point. And then this place is called tenths. And this place is called hundredths. Tenths and hundredths. So if I have the number, it looks just like this. How would I say that? It's not 0.35. Let's put it in our chart. How many hundreds do we have? We don't have any, so we don't have to put anything there. Do we have any tens? No. Do we have any ones? No. But when you're working with decimals, even if you have no ones, you have to make sure to put that 0 there. So I have 0 ones, my period. At my period I say and then I have 3 tenths and 5 hundredths. So I would say this as 0 and 35 hundredths. You always say the position that your last number is in. Let's try another one. What if I have this number? So I'd put my 1 here, period here, 2, 3. So I'd say that as 1 and 23 hundredths. What if I just have this? You gotta write your 0. Write your 0. You gotta make sure you always have that 1 digit before the period. And 4. So I'd say that as 0 and 4 tenths. That's just a little review on what a decimal is. So for our model, I want you to draw this hundredths chart. Go ahead and pause the video and get this all drawn. Make sure you have 10 across and 10 down. When you do that, you can press play again. So fractions with denominators of 10 and hundreds can be written as decimals. So what I want you to do is color in 48 of your blocks. 48. Ten, 20, 30, 40, 48. So we have 48 out of how many squares? How many squares total? 48 out of 100 is 48 hundredths. So let's look at this. How many tens do I have? Let's go ahead and make those into a group. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are my tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my tenths. So when you're talking about decimals, since we have 48 out of 100, these are my tenths. And then I also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are my hundredths. So if we have our place value chart that we made earlier, go ahead and draw that again. Remember, if I'm moving too fast for you, you can pause the video at any time that you want to. On my hundreds, tens, ones, there's my period. Then I have my tenths and my hundreds. Go ahead and get that all drawn up. So if I have 48 hundredths, I know for sure how many tenths do I have, right? I have 4. How many hundredths do I have? I had 8. So I've got to put my decimal there. And do I have any holes? I don't, so what do I have to put here? A 0. So 48 hundredths is the same thing as 0 and 48 hundredths. Okay, so go ahead and draw another hundredths chart for me. This time I want you to fill in 60 100ths. So go ahead and do that for me. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Remember, I'm moving too fast for you. Just slow down the video, okay? So I have 60 over 100. Let's go ahead and draw my place value chart again. This time I'm just going to put ones. I have my decimal point. Then my tenths. And my hundredths. So, how many holes do I have? I don't have any at all, do I? So I have 0. Period. How many tenths do I have? Remember, if we look at our last example, this is my tenths. They're the one that I have all 10 in a group. So how many tenths do I have? That's right. I have 6. And how many hundredths do I have? Do I have any pieces by themselves that don't make a tenth? I don't, do I? So now my decimal is 0 and 60 hundredths. Remember, you always say the last digit. 0 and 60 hundredths. Okay, so what if I do have a hole? What I did here was I drew 3/100ths charts, so I want you to go ahead and copy that. Remember, pause the video so you can do it without me going too fast. So I have 2 holes. 1 hole, 2 hole. I didn't worry about drawing everything on the inside. And then I have 32/100ths. So this will be 10, 20, 30, 2. So I have 1, 2. So this is a hole. This is a hole. And then I have my tenths and my little hundredths. So in my place value chart, ones, decimal, tenths, hundredths, what would go where? If I have 2 and 32/100ths. Well, let's look. Do I have anything in the ones position? I do. It's a 2. There goes my period. How many tenths do I have? 1, 2, 3. 3 tenths. How many hundredths? 2. So 2 and 32/100ths is the same thing as 2 and 32/100ths. Okay, I have one more thing I want to show you. I want to look at the difference between 2 tenths and 2 100ths. Let's go ahead and color in 2 tenths. Now remember, if you need to pause your video and get this all set up, go ahead and do that so I don't leave you behind. We're going to write 2 tenths. We're going to color it in. So remember, we have tenths. That's the whole thing. That's a group of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 1 tenth. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we have 2 tenths. A tenth is a whole thing. It's a group of 10. What about 2 100ths? Well, we have 100 parts. So how many do we need to color in? That's right. Just 2 squares. So here we have 1/100th, and here we have 2/100ths. So you see the difference? What if I asked you, would you rather have 2 tenths of a candy bar or 2 100ths of a candy bar? Well, definitely 2 tenths because that's more. So now how would we write this as a decimal? My place value chart, my ones, period, tenths, and hundreds. Well, how many holes do I have? Don't have any, do I? My period goes the same spot every time. How many tenths do I have? 2. Do I have any hundredths? No. So I just leave it blank. 0 and 2 tenths. 2 tenths. Let's look down here. Draw your place value chart again. Ones, period, tenths, hundredths. Do I have any holes? I sure don't. Period. Do I have any tenths? I don't. I don't have a group of 10 at all. And how many hundredths do I have? That's right, I have 2. 0 and 2 hundredths. 0 and 2 tenths. See the difference? You've got to pay attention to what your denominator is. It's very important this week.